Then we're good.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
never mind.
Thank you very much. All right.
You're welcome.
Then forward we go. Thank you for troubleshooting. All right. So we are back to um,
Well, we now know that the 3 people that we're watching are actually in this room.
that's right. That's fantastic. We're good. That's all right. All connected to the stream. All right. So with that, we are on the Athletic Trust Fund. We've had a motion, we've had a second, and a series of discussions. Mr. Dunning.
I just want to clarify for the public, when they look at the mound, that amount of money is not for what we would consider a dirt mound. That's for a portable mound, and that makes a lot more sense to me. That otherwise, I'd like some of that dirt at $1,300, but seeing it's a portable mound, it makes a lot more sense to me.
Thank you, Mr. Dunning. Additional discussion on the Athletic Trust. Catherine.
What, were any of the supporting documents provided to the public? Was this whole packet provided to the public?
No.
No, so we should,
Available here.
right. So if we do have anybody watching, I guess we should talk through what we're talking about because,
Yeah, I did. I talked through
right, but
that one.
he was
Oh, I see what you're
referencing
saying.
something and nobody would know what he was referencing.
Sure.
That's all
Yep.
I'm saying.
I'll make sure and that's why I read through it on this one. I'll make sure I do that on the others as well. Yep, for sure. Any other discussions on the Athletic Trust? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Approved. Next, in accordance with RSA 198:20-C, Roman numeral 2, a public hearing is held by the Kentucky Valley School Board for the purpose of expending funds from the Equipment Capital Reserve Trust Fund for the 2021-2022 fiscal year for the purchase of a replacement mower and dump trailer. Speaking to that this evening is Mr. Grossi. Okay, thank you. So this is, I'll read through it. The maintenance department currently utilizes a dump trailer an average of 3 times a week. The current dump trailer is in poor condition. Winter road salt has accelerated the rusting process. The trailer was purchased in 2012. Recommended addition. The proposed recommended is the purchase of one N&N galvanized steel dump trailer. The N&N trailer was chosen for a variety of reasons, including a thicker metal bottom and sides, galvanized coating which will not rust, and more payload capacity, both volume and weight. How does this request meet the needs of the priorities of the district? As noted earlier, the dump trailer is used on average 3 days a week all year long. During spring and fall cleanups, it is used daily. Many of our small schools do not have a dumping area for cleanup, so sand, leaves, grass clippings, and branches need to be hauled to alternative locations for disposal. Because of its large cargo space and low proximity to the ground, the trailer is used exclusively to haul furniture and other commodities throughout the district as well. There are 3 pricing quotes that were attached. The N&N trailer was chosen because the galvanized coating, cargo capacity, trailer specifications, and recommendations from other customers. At this time, we do not have a value on our current dump trailer, but given its age and the amount of work the trailer requires, I do not see the value being more than $1,000. So that is what is before you. Mr. Grossi? Anything to add?
No questions?
Any questions for Tim? Hearing none, seeing none. I would entertain a motion. There's a mower as well, is that correct? What's the mower? It's 2. So this next one is the other one that's included in this is let's see. The recommended is the purchase of one Ventrac 4520Y with attachments to replace 2 mowers. So this is a purchase of one to replace 2. The piece of equipment will be purchased with a 72-inch mower deck, leaf bagging system, brush mower sweeper, and wheel widening kit. The 72-inch mower deck allows to continue mowing large field areas at SMS, CVHS, and PES with great efficiency. The leaf bagger has a 16 cubic foot bin that lifts and dumps over 60 inches high. It allows much greater efficiency when bagging and removing leaves from the schools during the fall. The brush mower allows us to eliminate manually brush mowing the hills at CVHS, which currently happens annually, requiring $560 in equipment rentals and takes 3 days to perform. All indications lead us to believe that this tack will now only take 1.25 days to perform, eliminate the increased rental costs, and allow us to brush mower even more terrain. The sweeper attachment is critical for spring cleanup and proves useful for snow removal on our wider sidewalks at SMS and CVHS during certain conditions. The wheel widening kit allows us to safely mow the steep hill terrain at SMS and CVHS. So again, this is for two purchases. One is for the mower and its attachments and the dump trailer. Sure. You can make an emotion.
Second.
Moved by Jim, second by Dick. Catherine.
I was just curious, as to the total amount. I didn't see.
Up to 75,000.
There's one is 52.92 on this page.
Right. I just wanted to make sure that it was.
Yep, there's one for 31, one for 52, one for 48, one for 40. So there's different types and different, so there's several quotes.
That's why I didn't know if we had to decide what we were buying or just an up to amount.
No, the
Thank
up to
you.
75. Yep. Additional questions for Tim? Jim, make sure you, that's all right.
With the approval of the expenditure of those funds, at the end of this fiscal year, the fund balance will be roughly $305,000 versus a target of $150,000.
Thank you, Jim. Any additional discussion? All in favor of authorizing up to $75,000 from the Equipment Capital Reserve Trust Fund, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay, thank you. Next, in accordance with RSA 198:20-B, a public hearing is held by the Katukic Valley School Board for the purpose of accepting unanticipated return of surplus from the Health Trust for the 2021-2022 fiscal year. Lori.
All right, so Health Trust returned just under $680,000, and after we reimbursed employees for their share, the district is receiving $461,781.72.
So that should be minus.
I move that under RSA 198:20B, we accept $461,781.72 in unanticipated return of surplus.
Second.
Moved by Catherine, second by Dick. Additional questions for Lori, or additional things you need to tell us? Okay. Great. All in favor?
That's
Opposed?
the benefit that's
Abstained? Adopted. Thank you. Last one we have, in accordance with RSA 198:20-C, Roman numeral 2, a public hearing will be held by the Katukic Valley School Board for the purposes of expending funds from the Conval Building Capital Reserve Fund for the 2021-2022 fiscal year to conduct an engineering study for Conval High School, Grape Brook School, and South Meadows School. Lori?
Okay. So we previously had a public hearing on February 15th where we discussed the engineering study for the South Meadows School and the Great Brook, but we omitted the study for the high school. So now we would like to add $60,000 for this engineering study for the high school, and that's our best estimate at this time.
What
Jim.
will the total expenditure be then?
So the total will be $220,000 for engineering study across the three buildings.
We had already previously approved the other.
160, yes.
So this is a $60,000 addition to that.
Yes.
So I move that we that we increase the approved expenditure by $60,000 to include the high school and the engineering study for the high school, middle schools, both middle schools.
Second?
Moved by Jim, second by Catherine. Additional comments or discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Also approved. Okay. With that, that concludes our public hearings. I will now open the school board meeting at 7:26. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. With that, we are on to points of pride. Superintendent.
Sure. So we have Antrim Elementary Schools hosting a special event tomorrow evening from 4:30 to 6. Students in grades 3 and 4 will be presenting their research on the first annual Animal Symposium. The Harris Center will also be presenting to families about owls. This is expected to be a well-attended family event, and with guest readers from the PTO and the community. PTO is also giving out popcorn. Each student will be able to take home an animal field guide funded by our Title I funds. At PES last week, they completed the Reading with Ribby Literacy Challenge in conjunction with the Queen Swamp Bats of the New England Collegiate Baseball League. Students who completed the challenge earned a team t-shirt and a ticket to an upcoming Swamp Bats baseball game. Over 150 students completed the challenge and will be receiving their ticket and their t-shirt. TES completed a week-long residency last week with NHDI. So welcome back, NHDI. That is wonderful news. The students had a wonderful time learning all of their dances and had a great time welcoming families for a Friday evening performance. And at the high school, of course, spring sports are off to their start. There's a musical being performed on Thursday at 7 p.m. Additional performances on Friday and Saturday evening at 7 also. 4 students from the high school are participating in the New Hampshire All-State Music Festival, and Youth in Government participated in the All-State Conference at the State House in Concord, and one of the students, Gabby Ramsden, was elected as a Supreme Court Justice. And then finally, congratulations to our Granite State Challenge team who made it to the quarterfinals. Their run is now over, but we are very proud of their success. So they did fall to another school at the last set. So those are the points of pride today.
Thank you, Superintendent. Right on the other. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Superintendent. With that, student representative is not here tonight. I will move to the first period of public comment. During the period of public comment, members of the public may address the board on matters pertinent to the school district. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to address the board tonight? Hearing none, seeing none. There will be a second public comment later on in our meeting. We are now on to the consent agenda. Superintendent.
So can I TC Construction Trades Program? That's my first question. Can that be added to the consent agenda?
I have no objection. Anyone object to us adding that to the consent agenda? Hearing none, seeing none. I will add that to the consent agenda.
Okay.
Is that all?
And my second is, it would be my recommendation to remove nominations, since this is the annual election of teachers, from the consent agenda and do it immediately
Okay.
following the consent agenda.
Sure. Any objection? Okay, hearing none, seeing none. So the items on your consent agenda this evening are the acceptance of school board minutes from April 5th, 2022, a retirement and a resignation, which are included in your packet tonight. The retirement is Mr. Steve Barch, Assistant Principal of Conval High School. The resignation is Carol Young, Assistant Principal, Conval High School, and Julia Withers, a South Meadow School Grade 6 teacher. So that and the $5,000 anonymous donation to the construction trades program at the ATC. Dr. Creep.
Is Miss Young staying on as science teacher?
She has asked to be moved back into the science.
Mr. Dunning.
Mr. Barch's retirement, I just want to commend Steve Barch on what a wonderful job he's done for the Conval School District. He's an outstanding individual, and every aspect of leadership and commitment to students and commitment to the community he works within. And I'll miss seeing Steve. It's a great loss to the Conval School District.
Thank you, Dick. Seconded
Third.
by Catherine. Third by Dr. Kriebel. I'm going to accept a unanimous consent of the board. So, any other discussion or objection to the consent agenda? Hearing none, seeing none, it is adopted, and with thanks to the anonymous donor as well. Okay, with that, the next item on your agenda, therefore, is the nominations, which are in the packet that you were provided this evening. So in there is the list of actions, which is the list of in the back of your file. Looks like this: annual to annual, and then the SSPs, the annual to continuing, the continuing to continuing. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns? Dr. Ullman.
What does, I understand annual to continuing appointments, but what does continuing to continuing mean?
Superintendent.
So continuing contract means that they have completed, at this point, 5 years or more, and you are renominating them to continue their continuing contract.
But how is that different from what looks to me like a promotion, annual to continuing?
So-
People who've had 4 or 5 one-year contracts and who now are going to be given a continuing appointment.
So by New Hampshire state statute, students, teachers are on an annual contract for the first 5 years of their employment. At the 6th year, they are then not nominated, if they're not nominated or elected by the board to a continuing contract, they would have in that course of time been non-renewed. So annual to annual means that they are going from 1 or 2 years to their next year. Annual to continuing means they are leaving that annual every year, and now have the protections of the state statute in how a non-renewal of their contract would be handled. And continuing to continuing is the reelection of our continuing contract.
Additional questions? We do. Hearing none, seeing none, I would accept a motion to accept. What? Oh, do we need to do
Yep.
each one?
So I
Okay.
move
Oh,
to accept
no.
the annual to annual nominations for school year
Oh, okay,
22,
not
23.
individual.
Moved by Catherine,
So teacher by teacher.
second by Janine. Discussion on the annual to annual. Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. One abstention. Mr. Dunning. Next is the SSPs.
Yep, I move to accept the SSP nominations for school year 22, 23.
Moved by Catherine, second by Janine. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Mr. Dunning abstains.
I move that we accept annual to continuing nominations for school year 22, 23.
Second.
Moved by Catherine, second by Janine. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Mr. Dunning. Next.
I move that we accept the nominations for continuing to continuing nominations for the 22-23 school year.
Moved by Catherine, second by Janine. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Mr. Dunning abstains. Thank you, Superintendent. Thank you, Board. We are now on to Superintendent's Report and Presentation of Business, the monthly events calendar.
So you have your monthly events calendar in your packet. It is now the 19th of April. I'm not really sure where April went. It was just gone. Is there anything additional this week or anything additional next week? Okay, moving on to May. Is there anything additional the first week of May? The second week of May? The week of the 16th of May? And the week of the 23rd of May?
On the week of the 16th, we might put the strategic planning ahead of communications,
Okay.
but we'll see if that's possible. So leave it for 7:30 for now, but I'll talk with the members and see if we can move that up. Liz,
I would love to get the equity committee together in the month of May. So
Yep.
if we can coordinate a time and we'll get back to you next meeting.
That's fine.
Great.
okay. Thank you, Liz.
School board requests. I believe we still have one website request outstanding, which had, I had a meeting with Help Read today, which we had a spirited conversation about, what, the website in general. So outside of that, I don't believe there are any outstanding requests. Okay, fantastic. Wonderful news about the leadership cohort. We are able to fund that program with grants, so that's great news. One thing I would just put out for food for thought is whether or not we want to include books in that, the total amount of books for our participants, anticipating that our participants will be about 9, would be about $4,500 total for the amount of the program. So that would be probably something separate. No, not $4,500 total for all of the people and all of the books, not $4,500 a person. So,
Had we assigned a dollar value to that?
no, because
that why
I wanted to see if we could fund it with grants first. So we may need the $4,500 if we're gonna have, it will either be, we may need the $4,500, or we may have to ask participants to pay for their own books.
That would, if you want to support it that way, sure.
I move that we allocate $4,500 for the leadership cohort books.
I second that if it's in the budget or the lines can be transferred appropriately.
Moved by Janine, second by Catherine. Discussion. Mr. Dunning.
Just, where are we in the process of making staff aware of the opportunity to participate?
So the first notice will go out, actually should go out tomorrow in the payday memo.
Additional questions or discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of authorizing up to $4,500 for books in support of the leadership cohort, say aye. Opposed? Abstained? Adopted. Thank you. Next.
So as we have continued to discuss ongoing behavioral issues, particularly at the high school, I've included a position justification. You don't have to make any movement on this. This was an informational for you to review. It would need to go on an agenda under new, or could maybe go under old business, moving forward if you so desired. So you don't have to do that now either, but that's what it is, and that's why it's there. So, you guys have asked Heather what she feels like she needs, and she has put this together because this is what she feels like she needs.
Catherine?
I would like to see the board give a direction of whether or not we'd like to move forward. It's hiring season. I don't know if that's the right word, but if we're going to start with the next school year with this type of position or sooner, what? But either way, I think the discussion needs to happen as we're in a very tight labor market. So I think it's important, if that's the support the high school needs, that we at least have the discussion.
I mean, the position justification was on the agenda, so I see no problem with discussing it. If there's questions, motion,
So is
or anything like that.
Catherine, do you want to make a motion? I'll second it.
I would like to make a motion that we move forward with the resource officer.
School resource
Yeah,
officer?
school resource officer position, as requested for the high school.
I'll second that.
Second.
Moved by Catherine. I'll give the second to Christus with a third by Liz. Additional questions, comments, or discussion? Sorry, Jim.
Define move forward, just to investigate, or are we actually gonna approve the hiring of the person?
I mean, this was moving forward with recruiting for that position. I think there are some additional conversation this board needs to have, and I think some of those may need to be in non-public because there will be negotiations involved with this. So I don't know if that's what you were asking,
Clarify, right?
but there will definitely need to be those types of conversations that this board has. So yes. The direction of this motion would be to instruct the district to move forward with recruiting and
a
trying to
follow-on
fill this
question,
position.
if I may too.
Of course.
This, it's 2x2 chart in terms of the skill set required, educator, law enforcer, informal counselor. Are there people, is there a population of people out there that have this skill set, or where do the candidates primarily come from?
I'm sorry?
Candidates primarily come from the police force, but and yes, there are people who they have the skill set.
I have a long-term friend who serves as one in the Greater Lawrence area who fits all of that. So,
That-
is to say they do exist, Mr. Frederick. Catherine,
I'm going to amend my motion.
okay?
Just slightly. So
Sure.
if I can get a second and a third and a fourth, that'd be great. That we accept the recommendation of hiring a school resource officer for Conval High School in the amount up to $75,000. So it's a budgeted item approved by the school board.
Thank you, Catherine. Krista,
Second.
thank you. Additional comments or discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So moved.
Purple folder, purple packet.
Purple packet, purple people eater?
This, it does meet the requirements of our policy LC. And the doctoral student is a staff member.
Thank you. Questions on the research project?
Waiting for Dr. Ullman to ask.
Me too. I thought there would be something from Dr. Allman, but apparently we're good. All right.
Very much. That concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Superintendent. Next up is reports. I don't see a teacher's representative tonight. So we will move past that one. The next is the policy committee. Krista. All right, then I'll go with education. Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, Krista. Next, Education Committee, Dr. Ullman.
Should I start again? No. Okay, well, we met yesterday and, it was awesome. It was terrific. Liz Swan was there. We let her talk, even though she's not on our committee. It was really good of us. Anyway, this was a learning recovery update on Conval Middle and High School. Well-known consultants have been engaged for planning the learning recovery programs at the middle and high school. Amy Yannick, who's kind of the overall coordinator, has looked at the research literature and decided that students in middle school and high school should receive the normal, somewhat accelerated grade level instruction, but that should be supplemented by intensive tutoring. We also got some positive NWEA standardized test results in the area of math, which was a welcome development since we've had trouble. We haven't progressed quite as rapidly as we would like in the past on math standardized tests. We talked a bit about the challenges of getting tutors and also about summer programs. But the highlight of the night, Mr. Chair, was the presentation of the draft 2023-2027 Professional Development Master Plan. And this came from the Professional Development Committee, but also from Dr. Forrest. And I personally was not aware of a lot of the professional development activity. I was impressed with the extraordinary depth of the procedures that are being used to develop the professional capacity of our teaching staff and our special service providers. I also was very much impressed with how, under this plan, there'll be a differentiation. There'll be 5 pathways for various instructors, each pathway tailored to the professional development needs. The plan is based on scholarly literature. There's a person named Danielson, C. Danielson. I don't know his or her first name, but seems to be very, very important. But you can read Dr. Forrest. The board can read this document, which will be available someplace.
Well, the document was sent out as a link with the Ed Committee agenda. And in the document, which is still a draft document, any kind of substantive changes are highlighted in yellow. So if nothing else, it's really important that you look at those particular sections. And if you have any feedback, if you could send it to Dr. Ullman and me, and eventually it will come back to the board for approval and CDEA approval.
This was really impressive. I will say that Dr. Forrest made 2 typos in the 47 page. And I will be correcting her typos. But
The real question, Dr. Ullman, was did it entice you to come out of retirement and join the Conval family? That's really the whole goal of that, was to
I happen to be talking to someone about your efforts, Mr. Chair, to seduce the non-Conval employees, everybody on this board, to accept substitute teaching positions.
I've been trying that too, Dr.
Shameless seduction.
Okay,
is
let's
right.
move this right along,
Thank you.
shall we?
Thank you, Dr. Allman.
Okay.
All right, moving right along. Budget and property, Jim.
I will be brief. So with three items of significance, the modernization RFP, we just discussed that, has been released. The site visit was scheduled for Friday. 3 out of 4 invitees showed up. The good news is 3 out of 4 showed up. The bad news is the one that didn't show up is preeminently qualified, but he's just swamped the next couple of years. So we did get three good vendors to walk through. And the RFP receipts are due on May 13th, if I can read my writing. Either 13 or 18, maybe an 8. Anyways, they're due. The other thing of significance, there's 4 policies and 1 procedure related to facilities and fixed assets that were reviewed by the budget property and passed on to policy. And then the final thing, and we'll be talking about this later, we did make sure we had the trust fund summary updated for the discussion and the public hearings. And then we also will be discussing later the investment policy, which is in the package. So that's it.
Thank you, Jim. The Strategic Planning Committee also met on Monday. Thank you to the board members and the members of the administration for spending the day going through that. Your efforts were fruitful. We got a lot done on Monday to begin defining those priority areas for the strategic plan. We got almost all of them done. There are 2 groups left, and we'll deal with both of those on Thursday. So that's the next round of that, and we'll have the priority areas established. We'll have some goals and hopefully some objectives lined up under those as of Thursday to continue that process moving forward. So those are the reports. Next is the legislative update. I don't have one for you. I don't know if anyone has anything they want to add. On this particular one, stuff continues to move. Catherine?
I think there's a couple interesting bills, not to go too long, but we have House Bill 1417, which is the retirement contribution bill. That's interesting in that 1417 was heard on Wednesday, which would give a 7.5% on the employer share of the contribution. And at the exact same time, in a different committee, bill was added, a non-germane amendment to do a one-time payment out of state surplus with the pretty much the identical language of 1417. I think one bill provides a longer-term, sustainable contribution and reinstates what the state had taken back in 2012, and the other bill is a one-time payment in the same spirit. So I think that's very interesting. I think the amended bill with the non-germane amendment will most likely be what passes based on surplus. We're not in a budget year, so they didn't budget for the 7.5%. However, it's certainly preferable that we get the 7.5%. 2 other bills that are interesting. Senate Bill 420, the Extraordinary Need Grant for Schools, which will affect 5 out of our 9 towns, will be voted on the House floor on Thursday, and that's ought to pass with amendment. So that would provide direct taxation offset to communities who qualify based on free and reduced lunch and average daily membership. And the other bill that I think is interesting is House Bill 1671 with a Senate committee recommendation of ought to pass. And that's relative to the content and accountability of an adequate education and defining it. You might have heard that bill in the news because it's adding financial literacy. It's also adding a few other components that the state would have to ensure data was reported out at the district level. Schools will be ranked. It will all be public. It will all have to be available at the SAU, and having more of the statewide testing and the accountability piece is in that bill now. So I would recommend anyone check that bill out. There's no fiscal notes.
Are there ever, really?
What's one more unfunded mandate, right?
That's correct, and it's, I think some of the,
Is that the one that would have added logic and that stuff too? Is that the same package?
that, yeah, well, it was.
That's where it came out of, right?
Right, that's where it came out of, that's correct. And an amendment 1547 was adopted with the actual standards. So social studies includes civics, government, economics, geography, history, and Holocaust and genocide education now, that was added. Arts education, it specifically includes music and visual arts. Health includes health and wellness. However, we're doing all this at Conval, so luckily I think we do have some business classes, certainly at the high school. I'm not sure what level personal financial literacy and the rulemaking will take place. So it's an interesting bill for sure, and I would encourage everyone to take a look at that because it will certainly dictate maybe some changes in our curriculum moving forward.
Thank you, Kath.
It's ought to pass as amended.
Dr. Ullman and then Dick.
Catherine, I may have misunderstood you. Is there a bill that would take us back to 2011 before Speaker O'Brien and his supporters got rid of the 35% state responsibility for municipal retirements? There is such a bill.
So that's correct. House Bill 1417, and it's 7.5% contribution where it was 35% up until 2009, then reduced to 30, and then altogether gone in.
But there's no realistic prospect. This is what I misunderstood, I think, of a bill passing that would reinstitute the 35%.
Not the 35%.
No.
No, unfortunately not. And it's not municipal employees, it's only teachers, Group 1 teachers, police and fire. It's very important to keep saying that out loud because there seems to be misunderstanding. Unfortunately, that was never part of the original RSA or the original agreement back in 1967. Unfortunately.
That was my exact question, 7.5, well, that's great, but 35% was what is original, and,
Exactly correct, Mr. Ty.
It saves Convo, what, 338,000, even if we got a one-time payment? Yeah, so I mean, I think it's real money. So even at 7.5%, it's real money for every single subdivision in the state. So I think it's important, either way, that this legislation keeps moving forward. And because it was an expedient to legislate through every single committee and got overturned twice on the House floor, and there has been very vocal support on both sides of the aisle in the Senate and the committee. Now this non-germane amendment certainly recognizes that the restoration, people have an appetite for this, some level of restoration.
Thank you, Catherine. Anything else on the legislative update?
Well, there's a lot.
Well, sure, but I. All right. Thank you. Next up is preschool.
In your packets was the information regarding the preschool for all to kind of give you an update of where we are, to make sure you are supportive of the sliding fee piece that we will continue using, as well as to institute, or we wanted to make sure we gave you the recommendations for the placements, and both Tim and Carrie are here if you have any questions.
Questions on preschool? All right. So,
Sliding fee.
Right, so the sliding fee. So we're using income-based sliding fee scale. Information will be included in the enrollment packet upon preschool registration. This has been piloted using the free and reduced lunch scale. It appears to be a good tool in determining tuition payment based on need. You're looking for the board to continue to endorse that.
Well, we piloted it.
So now you want us to
Right,
adopt
so
it for the
then
whole
we
thing.
would adopt it.
Dick.
I would move that we adopt the sliding scale as presented.
Moved by Dick, second by Greg. Discussion. Jim.
3 and reduce 4 would be based on
Liz,
I have a couple of questions. First, I just wanted to ask if this preschool for all will also be available to people outside of our district, if we would accept outside applicants to preschool for all.
I think we would, and if there were space.
If there's space. And in light of the petitions that came from Temple and Dublin, I just wanted to acknowledge that, and just to ask once again for confirmation where we're planning on having the locations.
yep, so the 3 locations would be Peterborough Elementary School, Hancock Elementary School, and Greenfield Elementary School. And that's based on conversations with those building principals and the facilities director for what the best use of space was. And that would be the 3. Catherine?
Can I ask a follow-up to Liz's question? If we had an out of district students come in, being that we have a sliding scale and it's being funded and subsidized by tax dollars, would an out of district person pay the full cost?
So the sliding scale would be for our students. We would anticipate that someone coming from the outside would not. Would
Pay a
would
tuition,
pay
a full tuition.
The full tuition or our district tuition of 8,000?
We have usually charged, that would be something the board would need to direct the administration. We have usually charged them the district tuition rate.
So I think that's something that we should discuss, given the cost per pupil, at least as a board. So we either adopt the district tuition or the full cost of the program per pupil, seeing that it's tax subsidized.
Good question. Comments? Suggestions? Go ahead.
A constituent has asked me to ask, and I think we discussed this in the budget process, but I will ask it again. The preschool program is, the budgeted amount and the appropriation is evenly allocated to apportionment, or is it based on average daily membership for each town that attends? So if Temple has 10 children, they pay the share of 10 for that cost. When Greenfield has 40 students, how is that working?
So, again, not something the board has decided. So as of right now, the preschool is allocated evenly across the districts. So if certainly if you want to do it by ADM, that is something that the board can make that decision to do. Again, if you're going to do that, then I would recommend that you adopt the same formula that we use for all students.
So can I ask that these 2 items be placed on a upcoming agenda, so that I think these are important discussions to have?
I got the ADM one. What was the other
The
one?
ADM and the tuition.
Okay.
So that
So
this
we'll
is
leave-
before
so
our
I-
next school year starts, that we're very clear, especially with the voters and our constituents, on how this program will work in practice from a fiscal perspective.
The motion still on the table as of right now is to adopt the sliding scale for within district. So that one would be the thing we could move on tonight, and then we'll put those other 2 items on the next meeting agenda so we can discuss those for that proposal. That. Okay. Krista.
I've also had a couple parents ask me, or taxpayers ask me, if we possibly could get a count per town where students are going to each one of those preschools, whether it's the Greenfield or the Peterborough or the Antrim one. Okay, thank you.
Enrollment, current enrollment is in your monthly enrollment report.
But you're
No,
asking
I want to know per town, like
how many
at
students?
the Antrim
Oh,
branch.
sorry.
At the
Thank
Antrim
you.
branch,
Got it,
how
got
many are from Antrim? How many are from Bennington? How many might be from Peterborough? How many
Got it.
might be from Temple? How
Got it.
many might be from?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to clarify the criteria for a family of four for a reduced, and for reduced tuition would be, an annual income of $51,338. That would be reduced. And, free, which we actually haven't done, would be a family of five would be 36,000. We have done. So $36,000 annually would be their income
So if they're
for
at
a family
that,
of five.
if they're at that, they don't pay. And then if they're above, with
Right,
the
so
sliding
we,
scale
so,
applies.
I mean, you
after.
can, I have the
okay.
scale right
Okay.
here, but, and that's for SY 22, 23. So a family of five making $36,000 would
So
qualify.
My question wasn't the criteria, but if somebody qualifies for reduced tuition, what do they pay? 40,
Oh.
I heard 40 or 70%.
Sorry, I misunderstood your
I
question.
heard 40 or 70, the 40% reduction or 40%. I'd like to know is the 40% reduction or 40% of the tuition?
Can we do
Make
that?
the Board request that.
Can we do that at the, do you want to hold this for the next meeting and have all of that data and do all three?
Yeah, we ought to do that.
Does that work? I don't know who made the motion. Who made the motion? Okay. Do you want to keep that on? I'm okay if you do, and then we can get the details next week. I wanted to be responsive to the concern that the numbers weren't available. Catherine?
So we'll estimate the cost based on, what our estimated enrollment was going to be. So what our estimated cost, and we do that every year. There's no, if you want to move these to May, where we are not in a position that we,
I don't think anyone on the board objects to the concept of the sliding scale. I think the question was simply, could we have the numbers? So I have no problem continuing to move the question about adopting a sliding scale. But when we deal with the other two questions next meeting, if we could have.
I don't have any problem with throwing my motion and waiting till we meet in May.
Carrie?
So I just wanted to clarify around the sliding fee. It's on. And how we've done the tuition. So the conversation may be how we've done the tuition compared to how we want to continue to do the tuition. We are continuing to do the tuition in the way that we've always done it until we're told to do it differently. So how it's always been done is it's always been a very low amount of money. We've assessed like programs in the area and outside of the area to get a sense of what the going rate is, and then we've based our rate on that. We did a review several years ago and increased it a bit. So it's not, the tuition rate is not based on how much it costs us per child to implement the program. So I think it's important to understand how we've done it, and if it needs to change, then that's a different conversation. But as far as we're moving forward, we're continuing to move forward with how it's always been done. How much we pay, how much we bill families based on the free and reduced lunch rate, which is an established rate that we use for free and reduced lunch. So we didn't make up something. We're following that same process. So it's really important for me that you understand that we've been billing tuition for preschool for 25 years. Okay, and every periodical, as we go along, we periodically look at what's the rate What's the comparative, and do we need to increase the rate? That this program was never about making money. This is not what this program is about. And we've said that right from the very beginning. The target group of people children that we're trying to get into the program are children that would not be able to afford it otherwise. So this is not a program about making money.
I don't think anyone suggested it was. Jim?
To clarify, I'm not questioning, I just like to understand the numbers, not questioning how we're doing it. I'd like to see the numbers.
So do you I guess I'm wondering if what, because I'm trying to think about what you are asking for, because the numbers are the same as they would be for free and reduced lunch.
So no, so the question is simply so obviously if they get free lunch, they don't pay. If they get reduced lunch, do they pay? And if so, how much? If they don't qualify for either, what is that? So literally the dollars of what that looks like as a family moves up the income scale.
And how many forecasts in each category, so we can look at the total
That's the question.
cost. If we're gonna have the discussion that Catherine brought up, we need to understand what's coming in and what's going out. We need all those numbers.
I think that's the question, right? That's the, sorry, Kimberly and then
So
Catherine?
just, I think a clarification would be that I know the board has seen those numbers before, but I think there's been enough turnover since the last time the numbers were here that they just want to see, okay, what are we charging children? What would 40% of that be? So
Exactly the question. I don't remember seeing it last year. Catherine?
So thank you. That was very helpful to have that background. I certainly did not think that we were trying to make money on a program designed to bring in and be accessible to all. So I guess in my financial mind, what I pictured seeing was something like the total cost of the program broken, divided by the anticipated number of students, and then moving, as Jim said, down into the categories and what that looks like, so we can understand the total financial implication of the whole program as we make our decisions. So starting with that first column being the total cost of the program, regardless of tuition, and then moving from there. But certainly understanding we want to be competitive, if not below others, so we are bringing our students here for our program. That's not, in my mind, the question. It's just making sure I understand as I'm making decisions representing all the citizens, students of the district.
Kimberly?
I do feel that while those pieces are the tuition and those pieces may have been something that has not been addressed in maybe this board iteration or this year, to clarify it for everyone. I know we have turnover from year to year. I do think that the administration has been very transparent about the total cost from the time that we put it into the budget initially 4 or 5 years ago to the time it was placed in the budget and then placed on the warrant this year. And that warrant passed at 60%. So I'm not sure that rediscussing that is a fruitful endeavor. And I would ask why we would be asking Carrie and the administration to put all of that information back together in a new and different format.
So as I understood the request, it was twofold. So we understood better how the sliding scale worked and what those numbers looked like. Because if I had to answer you right now, I don't know that. I can't answer that. And I don't remember seeing it last year. You may have very well given it to us. I don't remember seeing it. So I think that was that part of that discussion. I think the question on how we choose to distribute that is a question. So again, not that we aren't supportive of it, not that we're not going to do it, not that we don't understand that there is already a budget for it. We have that, we've seen that, but how we're going to charge that, I think, is that part. And then relative to that, what do we then want to do with tuition? Do we stick with our continued Conval rate, or are we on this particular item willing to charge more based on? I mean, I think that's what I heard from this board, not questions around how much it was or support thereof or anything like that. Correct.
I need to touch base with Carrie because Carrie, is not going to be at the next meeting.
Okay.
And there's
That's fine.
questions on not, whether or not she would be at the one after that. So I need to touch base with Carrie. I'm not sure. I have to, not first.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Carrie. Okay. Thank you all. Okay. Anything else on preschool? Great. Next is a second read. This is for adoption. This is policy IHCD, policy LEB, advanced coursework and advanced enrollment. I would accept a motion to approve policy IHCD, policy LEB, advanced coursework, advanced enrollment as submitted. Moved by Dr. Ullman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Janine. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Abstained. Policy IHCD, policy LEB, advanced coursework, advanced enrollment is adopted. Next, new business. We have two first reads. The first is policy DK, payment procedures. This is on page 13 and 14 of your packet. The second is policy DAF, administration of federal grants. If you have comments on those, please get those to the policy committee, i.e. Kristen. Next, we have two policies that need to be rescinded. The first is policy GBAA, sexual harassment, employees, staff. This has been replaced by policy ACAC.
I move that we rescind policy GBAA, sexual harassment for employees and staff, because it is replaced by ACAC, and it will be noted in our policy manual.
Second.
Moved by Janine, second by Dick. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstained. Policy GBAA has been rescinded. Next is policy JBAA, sexual harassment students, also replaced by policy ACAC.
I move that we rescind policy JBAA, sexual harassment for students, because it is replaced by ACAC. It will be so noted in our policy manual.
Second.
Moved by Janine, second by Dick. All in favor? Opposed? Abstained. Policy JBAA has been rescinded and replaced by policy ACAC. Okay, next, you all have a copy. Thank you for those of you that provided some comments. This is a draft request for information slash request for qualifications. Thank you to Alan for his work on getting this off the ground after I promised it to you all back in December. So this is an RFI slash RFQ that would seek to identify our statement of need around trying to find a qualified provider to conduct some analysis and some background work on consolidation and realignment within the Conval School District. So the document that you provided has our statement of need, provides some background about the district so that someone reviewing it would have some backgrounds. It provides some preliminary information about the schools themselves, includes the Conval core beliefs. Then we get into desired qualifications of a provider, so who we're looking for, what skills or qualifications that provider might have, such things as previous experience working with school districts, especially cooperative school districts, experiences in financial analysis, educational requirements, multi-school districts, social requirements for students, understanding control and coordination needs, finances, especially municipal, interviewing and community engagement, and in developing needs analysis. So that is what we have before you. If you have comments on this, we would welcome those tonight, or you can follow up with us. We'd like your approval to continue moving down this road in developing this document so that we can get it into the hands of the administration so that they can post it for us. Questions? I have Liz. Go ahead.
So not so much of a question, more of a comment, and just to publicly acknowledge that this RFI does address or respond to the warrant article that was passed by the Conval voters in 2019 that requires the school board to submit to the Conval district the comprehensive analysis of the district, the preliminary work that we would need in order to discuss the consolidation, reorganization of the school districts. So I just wanted to publicly say that for clarity's sake, for especially the communities that work very hard to move that to the front of the warrant article. So that work is going to be done. It's an effort to get that work moving.
So just to be clear, that work has been done at least 3 times in the past. All of that has been shared with all of you on the board, so you can familiarize with the multiple times we've gone down this road. The discussion this board had was that we would not once again ask the administration to do more work that this board would then also fail to act upon. And so this is the manner in which we've moved on that instead. So the hope, part of that hope would potentially be that whoever is selected for this purpose might be able to build off of the work that was already done before, so we're not reinventing the wheel yet again, because some of that stuff was comprehensive, frankly, from before. So.
And yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to make sure that my constituents especially know that this is, a discussion that we're having and that this is work that's ongoing and
It is.
imminent. So
Thank you. Yes. And included in the strategic planning process. Kimberly and then Dr. Kriebel.
Do you want legal counsel to review the RFI?
As soon as I have any other input from the board, I'll then hand it over to that's what I was coming here tonight, was to ask for the board's approval for Alan and I to take any comments that come in from the board, and package those, hand them off to you, and then we can run those through, because the board can't issue it, so I would then rely on the district to post that for us. Yep. Through your regular, I know we don't normally do RFQs, we just normally do RFCs, but so, Greg and then Alan.
Just for clarification, looking at this graph for building capacities, I believe we talked about this on Monday.
We did.
And I thought on Monday, we were told it was actually 240, not 120. So at some point, can we get the right numbers
Yep.
at the right places?
So 240 at Hancock Elementary would include children in almost every square footage available, including the multi-purpose room, which is obviously not a class. I mean, that's where those numbers come from, as published by the New Hampshire Department of Education. So
I just wanted clarification.
that is where that comes from, versus the fact if I have 7 classrooms and our policy is 20 kids, it's 140. If we have 6 classrooms and our policy is 20 kids, that's the 120.
Understood. Just
Yep.
wanted some consistency.
Thank you, Dr. Kriebel. Alan.
Yeah, and that 240 figure is what we publish or what we give to the state. That is not, as I heard, that is not what we in turn subscribe to, which is down to the 120, which is what all the smaller schools will look for. Okay. Now, the only other thing is that if anybody has suggestions on looking for companies or consulting firms that we can send the RFI out to, that would be amazing. Because I looked last night and the way I looked, there was very few out there. So I know already that my search criteria is not valid. So if anybody has ideas about that, what kinds of, not what kinds, but searching for these types of companies. I think that would be great.
We'll check with Kevin too. He might have an idea. Dick and then Janine.
Just to clarify, I've been here long enough to know when these buildings were built, they were built for 120. That's what they were built for. And secondly, I believe both Vermont and Maine have done a lot around consolidation, particularly Vermont, that there may be resources there through either their SAUs or whatever they are in Maine and Vermont, that may provide some guidance. I went online today to see what I could find, and it gets a little complicated, but there may be resources there that they consulted with people who helped them with figuring out how the consolidation worked.
Yeah, there was no shortage of material out there for when multiple districts merge. There was no shortage of information for when within a district, say, a high school either merges or splits. Lots of stuff around that. I did not. I'll expand my search or target to Vermont and Maine and see what I can find on that. But it was very difficult to find anything, frankly, anywhere that looked anything like this. But thank you, Dick. I will focus in on Vermont and Maine and see what we can scrounge up. Any other additional, Janine?
So, like, from your statement, Tim, it's clear that there's an expectation that whoever we hire is going to pick up those models that have already been done by the administration that work and take a look at those, because the piece that has always been missing is this analysis that I think you refer to, like the impact on the communities as well as the cost and the logistics of maintaining some or implementing something like this. So, but I don't see that in here. Like, there's no reference to, based on information to be requested by.
So the intent was to look at what are the educational benefits and disadvantage of consolidation and realignment. Related to that, the one Krista suggested to add was what's the opportunity cost of failing to consolidate or realign? What are the financial impacts of consolidation or realignment? What are the social and emotional impacts on students as a result of, or not? Right. I mean, all of these have a or not component. Is that what you mean? Beyond that?
No, that's not what I mean. I mean, like, if I was looking at this, if I was a possible person to like do this study, I would want to know that you're handing me models that have already been worked out, and I don't see that here. Like, there's an expectation that person is going to work on the models that have already.
I think that would. This is the.
This would be just soliciting to see if there are companies out there that are interested in doing work. And then we would come through the RFP, which would actually, it could be 40, 50 pages on an RFP easily, which would go exactly what you're saying to that kind of detail.
I see. Okay.
The sample the example I would give you is when the towns have gone out for their broadband build out. The first step in that is an RFI, and in most of those towns they've done a direct letter with this attached, or with something like this attached to Consolidated, to Y Valley, to Comcast, and say, are you capable of this? Can you give us this starting information? And then they issue the full RFP. But that's why it's not an RFP. And I know that most of the things you'll see out of the district are full-fledged RFPs. This is not that. This is a different first step.
And also, there will be, when we send this out, there will be a cover letter to this to basically explain what our process is.
Okay. Sounds good.
Additional comments, questions, concerns from any member of the board. So if you have additional edits or comments, please get those to Alan and I. Get those to me per Alan's head shake of no. And then we will get that to the administration, who will get it to legal to make sure we're not doing anything too far afield. And then we will publish that and see where it goes from there. Mr. Dunning.
Timeline?
When would I like your edits?
Yeah, when let edits and when do they go to legal? So that we know this is moving
as soon as
along.
you get me your edits, I will send it. So if you can get me those in the next couple of days, I'll get it to the administration by Friday. If you get them to me by Thursday, and then give legal a couple of days, and then we'll try to get it out within the next couple of weeks.
Great, so maybe at the next board meeting, we could have
An
information back on where we go with this?
I'll do my best. When it goes out, it doesn't always go.
I understand that, as long as I see light at the end of the
I'm
tunnel.
trying my best, Mr. Dunning. Thank you to Alan for kicking it along, and Dr. Keeble for his email. So we'll get there. All right. Thank you all. Next, technology purchase recommendations. What? Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Have at it.
Okay. Yeah, all right. So I would like to move the first purchase of 20 laptops to continue with plan replacement cycle of staff devices from the vendor WCA and the bid amount of $19,220.
Second,
Moved by Catherine, second by Dick. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Approved. Catherine.
All right, the next purchase recommended, and I do love this format. It's my favorite to read. Thank you. Is 560 11-inch touchscreen Chromebooks for the plan replacement of student devices, and it also includes the Google Chrome management license. The vendor is WCA again, and the bid is $190,960. And it's of note that other Chromebook bids were received but did not meet specifications. So,
second,
Moved by Catherine, second by Dick. Discussion. Dr. Allman.
The note was quite helpful, given the contrast between the two bids and we got the rationale for why the higher bid was accepted. That was good information.
Thank you, Dr. Allman. All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Catherine.
all right. And the last request was for 6 Allied switch. This is technology language I don't understand, but something 10 GBIC port adapters replacing aging network infrastructure at CVHS. So I think that's the important takeaway. And the vendor is ISC in the amount of $18,422.
second,
Moved by Catherine, second by Dick. Questions or discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Approved? Good. All right. Thank you. Next, the Discipline Review Committee. So, I would like, this is going to require a board motion and vote. So, as chair, the following members of this board have been named to the Student Discipline Review Committee. Janine Lesser, Kevin Pops, Stephen Ullman, Tom Burgess, and Krista Salome. What I now need is the board to authorize the Discipline Review Committee to act on your behalf during those discipline review hearings. So the motion is for the board to authorize the Discipline Review Committee to act on behalf of the board during those hearings.
I move the recommendation by the chair as presented.
Moved by Dick,
Second.
second by Liz. Questions or discussion? Jim. The Discipline Review Committee, there are, when we get to issues of suspension and expulsion of students, the building principals have the authority to suspend a student for a period of 10 days. The superintendent, through our policy, is allowed to further suspend that student for an additional 10 days. If there is then a recommendation made to remove a student, to expel a student from schools, or if that student appeals those suspensions, those come to the next level, which is the board. The board has established the Discipline Review Committee to hear those appeals on our behalf instead of the entire board. So the Discipline Review Committee is Janine Lesser, Kevin Pops, Stephen Ullman, Tom Burgess, and Krista Salome.
He's a,
So noted. Dr. Ullman.
does the recommendation for going beyond 20 days come from the superintendent or from the principal? From the superintendent?
So I would be happy to talk about the whole packet that you got in.
Yeah, I haven't read it yet, so I probably learned
It is
from
in
the
there.
packet.
So the first 10 days of suspension are not something that can be appealed, to the board level. And anything over a 10-day suspension is appealable to the board by the parent. So if I meet with the student and I also have a hearing with the student and the administration and the parents, then if I add days based on what I hear or think, that is appealable. If after that hearing the behaviors meet the statutory pieces and or the behaviors are so excessive, either repetitive behaviors and or a single significant behavior, then I may, based on the information I hear at that hearing, move the student on for a hearing with the school board. So any recommendation to move a hearing to the school board does come from the superintendent.
Kath.
Dr. Ullman, the process is outlined in policy JICD,
Yeah.
due process, and it's very descriptive on each step. So,
Krista has given me a packet to examine. I was unable to go to the briefing yesterday.
okay.
But I will catch up by reading the packet.
Any other further discussion or comments before I seek authorization?
I just want to clarify that there was a training held Monday for any board member, but specifically for the discipline review committee to more deeply understand the statutory requirements and more deeply understand the process. I believe that the workshop was called the discipline of student discipline.
It was. Dean is always good with his titles.
It was done by council, not by me.
Okay, with that, all in favor of authorizing the Student Discipline Review Committee to act on behalf of the board, say aye. Opposed? Abstained? Thank you for that. Next are the general assurances. So in your packet are the general assurances that have been provided to us by the New Hampshire Department of Education that cover all of the rules of the road as they go for accepting grant funding. I have to initial and sign those on behalf as board chair, so this is seeking your authorization to allow me to sign those on your behalf.
Before you do that, though, I do need to make sure that in the minutes it is noted that we receive approximately, I can't tell you exactly because we don't have our allocations yet from the New Hampshire Department of Education, even though they tell you, but we do not have, so I can only estimate what our federal allocations will be, and we anticipate that we will receive approximately $2.5 million in potential grant dollars for FY 22-23. So that would also include some competitive grants that we have gotten in the past.
Question?
We have a policy.
We do have a policy, but I have to sign it.
This is,
So you have to, and it requires my signature and initial on every page, or my initial on every page. Well, again, so your policy can never exceed their, your policy can be stricter than theirs, but no less, how do I phrase that? Right, can't be more lenient.
Always supersede that.
Correct. And so there's the federal rules, the state rules, and then your rules apply. So even though we have a policy on that, that's fantastic. It has to comply with the state. The state can have their policies. Those have to comply with the Fed. Is how that works. Yes.
So this is a uniquely New Hampshire requirement that was implemented by our present Commissioner of Education. This is actually it's one of the things you pay us and Lori to do to make sure that we meet the requirements and understand the federal guidelines. So this is actually an unusual piece to have the board chair actually sign. I am also required to sign. Interestingly enough, if when I sign, I am actually signing with the my certification, and Lori, when she signs with her certification, like putting up our certifications, like we guarantee with our certification. But that apparently was not enough for the commission.
Mr. Dunning,
I move that we allow the chair to sign the documents as requested.
Second.
moved by Dick, second by Janine. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Please. Abstained? None? Thank you. I'll start signing. Okay, Janine, here you go. Have at it while I sign.
Oh.
You're on investment.
Okay, I gotta get back up to the agenda.
Investment guidance.
Okay, we are at investment guidance, page 51. Well, we looked at that. So that's the investment guidance, page 51. Is that the guidance we're approving? Oh, Lori, sorry, go ahead.
So the trustee of the trust funds have requested some guidance so that they can better align our investment of the trust funds with our goals and our anticipated use of the monies. So what I'd like to recommend is that we provide, well, I should back up. The Budget and Property Committee had come up with recommendations for target balances for each trust that was discussed with the board and approved by the board. And so what I would like to do, or recommending that we do, is we provide that information to the trustees of the trust funds so that they can invest those targeted balances in a higher yield, higher risk category of investments. Then we should also provide to them our anticipated use of the funds so that those could be a little more liquid. And right now, I think most of our balances exceed by a fair amount our targeted balances. And so that those could be in a higher risk as well, moderate to higher risk. So that's what I'm recommending that we would propose and provide them. So that would include, well, it could include providing our trust summary document. I don't know if that would be what you would want to do or not.
Do we need a motion?
Please.
Okay, someone would like to make a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, moved by Jim, seconded by Catherine. Okay, Jim, you have a question?
Correct. We cannot direct the specific instruments that they invest in. We can provide them a copy of our investment policy, so they need to comply with that as well. But the RSAs are pretty strict with how we can invest our money.
We can tell more aggressive.
Yes. Yeah.
So I suppose for the record, our objective would be the preservation of capital, of course, while maximizing the interest. Well, I guess we could look at it the opposite of mitigating against the impact of inflation. We may want to reframe that in today's inflationary market, and making sure that they understand that the intent of the longer term investments is longer than 1 year. And I think Lori, that she said at our meeting, would convey that these are funds that if we have this target balance, which we've actually moved up twice over the last 2 years to make sure that we have the cushion that we need in the event of an emergency in any one of our trust funds. These target balances now provide that, but we don't anticipate using them in any, they don't need to be liquid. So going longer than 1 year would definitely provide that type of guidance, to your point, Jim, to the trustees as they're going to choose the investment instruments. So we're not looking for this to be within the year to spend and on our targeted balances. We're looking for a longer term investment opportunity. So
No, I would provide this in writing because I want to include our investment policy. I want to include our trust summary document, which is going to clearly delineate what we anticipate spending and what our targeted balances are, and it'll be more fleshed out. This was for discussion
but I
purposes.
think the conversation piece, I mean, we certainly could provide a document on everything that we've put in and out in the last several years so they can see the types of purchases we make or when we might make them. But Lori's going to be providing those spreadsheets, which are the backup, and she'll give the narrative when she does that. And I think that's going to be the helpful piece. Right, that'll be the helpful piece to the trustees, but it really is up, it's in their purview.
It'll probably be, it won't be this week, so it'll probably be next month. So are you asking me to wait to give them?
No, I'm asking you to put the package.
Okay, what I've sent. Okay.
So, Dick, just to be clear, we want the packet to the trustees as soon as possible so they can start investing. That's the important piece here. Yeah, thank you.
Dr. Ullman.
On at least one other trustee of the trust funds, there was a basic decision that had to be made between being a rational person and a rational investor. And I noticed that language is not, rational person meant money market funds don't do anything that could conceivably risk your capital. Rational investor may take a little bit more risk, look for growth. But so I'm just, I guess I'm curious. That's when I served on the trustee of the trust funds, we had to make that basic decision. But your guidance is more general. Have you avoided making?
So they have their own investment policy, and then we have a board investment policy that I will also be providing to them. What they have asked from us is to provide guidance as to how we anticipate spending our money so that they could better align the investment to meet our needs. So right now, for example, our investment income last year dropped from 77,000 to 11,000 because they had it in a very liquid account. So they have our $3 million sitting as cash somewhere, basically, essentially. So they need some guidance because they don't want to tie up the monies if we anticipate using it, and they don't know what our plans are. So that's what I'm trying to provide to them. And then they have to follow their policy, and we will provide our policy as well.
Right. So I think you're referring to like the prudent person rule, not rational, we're not rational usually when it comes to our money, but we do need to be, right? We get emotional, but the prudent person rule, and it's all governed for the trustees under the RSA 3127. So they have a very strict guideline, and then they have to have a policy and procedures in place to apply with that prudent person rule. So our money is very safe. I mean, for lack of a better term, because they have limited instruments and they can't invest in Bitcoin. They have limited instruments that they can invest in, and nothing is going to be super high yield because of being prudent and not being able to lose principal, preserving the principal while trying to maximize. So it's still a relatively low risk. All municipal investing is considered pretty low risk if you're talking to someone who used to work on Wall Street, so low risk.
So the recommendation is to provide the district's targeted balances, anticipated annual use of trust funds to the trustees of the trust. Targeted balances should be a guideline for the higher yield investments, and the sum of anticipated annual withdrawals should be fairly liquid. So that's the request from the administration. You already get a motion?
Yeah.
Sorry. So there was a motion and a second. All in favor of that recommendation?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Adopted. Thank you. Lori.
Okay, so the expense and encumbrance report was included in the packet. Don't know if you have any questions. We are in the process, there were a number of little small amounts that of overages that popped up on this report. We're in the process of reviewing and closing out open purchase orders, and so during that process, we'll be cleaning up some of these items.
Thank
I
you, Lori.
move we accept the expenditures and encumbrance report as presented.
Moved by Dick, second by Catherine. Discussions? Lori?
So I do want to also, I know that there's been some question and concern about when we can start talking about fund balance for the end of the year. Our goal is to have that to you for the second meeting in May. And that, again, we would stress that that is preliminary unaudited numbers.
Thank you, Lori. All in favor of approving the expenditures and encumbrance report? Opposed? Abstained? Adopted. We have now reached the second period of public comment of tonight's public meeting. Is there anyone here that would like to address the board? Hearing none, seeing none. The next is approval of manifests. Lori.
All right. I certify that manifests totaling $4,538,591.13 have been reviewed by me and found to be proper charges against Kentucket Valley School District for goods and/or services received and have been properly processed prior to their submittal to the school board.
I move we approve the manifest as presented.
Moved by Dick, second by Jim. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? The approval of manifests is complete. We do have non-public items for you this evening. We have negotiations, legal, and personnel.
I move that we go into non-public session under RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2 for negotiations, legal, and personnel.
Moved by Janine, second by Catherine. Tim?
Janine.
Thank you. With that, we are now